Okay, so this is perfect. I'm having breakfast with y'all because one, I mean, the bishop does breakfast with the bishop, so I figured I would join in too. But when I was thinking about what our meditation would be for today, this Wednesday, I started thinking about comfort. Comfort. I was, getting ready for the day. I was dropping Waverly off at school, and I was, thinking about what I wanted for breakfast, which I do. I was thinking maybe about picking up a biscuit from Dude's or something from the Donut Palace right here, or maybe something over from Janie's. Getting Emily some breakfast. And she didn't want anything, and I just really wanted some real good comfort. And I was lamenting the fact that, at least to my knowledge here in Brookhaven, there's not like a diner or a truck stop that sells like just some corned beef hash. And not even like good corned beef hash that I might make at home with actual like chopping up some corned beef and like potatoes and onions and peppers and making a hash, which, trust me, is fantastic. But like even just like the stuff that comes in the tin can, the stuff that, yes, I admit looks like dog food. It's just, I have such fond memories of my grandfather when I was a boy. My brother and I would spend the night at his house when my parents had date night. And he was a retired Marine colonel, and every morning his breakfast was 2 eggs over easy, some bacon, and some buttered toast, and maybe some grits. And that's what he had for breakfast every day. Now for us, it was more special. He would have eggs scrambled, bacon, some corned beef hash from the can, and some buttered toast. And I just really remember those breakfasts fondly. To this day, I still like corned beef hash from the can, as unsophisticated as it might be. But also, from my grandfather's example, I like what I call truck stop food. Honestly, a bologna steak is great with some eggs for breakfast or like a really late night snack. It's just good. And so when I think of comfort, I think of, honestly, like this kind of somewhat simple but unsophisticated food. And as I was getting ready for today's meditation, I just really wanted not even some nice fancy upscale hash. I wanted something from a can cooked in a skillet with some eggs on top. And so I have made that happen. Today's saint is Scholastica of Nursia, who is said to be, tradition tells us, the twin sister of Benedict of Nursia. Perhaps you've heard of the Benedictine monks. Well, Benedict of Nursia was essentially the founder of modern monasticism. Or I would say monasticism as we know it. There were certainly lots of religious orders that came out of Christianity. Certainly there were ascetic peoples, people who did without earthly things as a part of prayer. You could think of John the Baptist was an Essene, an ascetic person, kind of like what we would consider a monk. And so hermits living in the wilderness, or people going off to pray away from the world, is not something that Benedict created. However, even though there were lots of religious orders, Benedict wrote a rule of life called the Rule of Benedict. And a rule of life, as we've talked before, is just any kind of set of guidelines that you write for yourself, or maybe that you adopt for yourself, and it's the rule that you live by. And so Benedict's rule was a set of guidelines for monastic communities to live by, and not just for the own individual monks and nuns to guide their prayer life, but also very practical ways of dealing with like disagreements within the community, or how to welcome in a new member of the community, or how to treat a guest, how to maybe get rid of a guest if they've overstayed their welcome. Just basically the best practices for a religious community. Well, Benedict's rule has sort of become the standard by which most monastic communities or religious communities have governed themselves. Even if they're not Benedictines, if they're Franciscans or Dominicans, St. Mary's up in Swanee isn't a Benedictine community, but it does follow the rule of Benedict as its rule. So that's enough about Benedict. Scholastica is said to have been Benedict's twin sister. And so she is the founder of Benedictine female communities, basically nunneries. And what's obvious kind of about her name is that she is the patron saint of learning, of schools, of books. So the name scholastic or a scholastic this or scholastic that comes from Scholastica. Anyway, that's really all I've got about her. But it just makes me think back to our my regular contemplation upon monastic communities, and even though I don't think that I am not called to live in a monastic community, but I do find a lot of great comfort from contemplatives who have written, monks and nuns who have written over the years. For our Lenten study, we're going to be reading is he Cistercian? No, he's Carmelite. We're going to be reading the Carmelite Brother Lawrence as part of our Lenten discussion. But also we're going to be, I just want us to consider what our own rule of life might be. Even if you aren't, thinking about joining a monastic community, pick up Benedict's rule of life. It's real good. It costs nothing. You can get it free online. And even though it's geared toward how to run a religious community, and so all of the chapters may not fit into your life, I think there's certain things to glean from his writings, because everything is based on some line of Scripture. And so he's constantly calling back to Scripture as the impetus for giving a certain directive or suggesting a certain course of action. And that every time I look back on Benedict's rule, I think about what my own rule of life may be or will be. It's something I'm constantly re-examining and reconsidering, and I really should just sit down and write it one of these days. I think I've been too scared to start. Kind of like the scariest thing is a blank piece of paper. I think I would need to have maybe like a template from somebody else and tweak it to fit my own style. But I think a rule of life would be something really worth considering for Lent. So let's think about that as a group, shall we? I did have one question about when are we meeting to discuss the Lenten book, the Practicing the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. As of now, we don't have a set time to meet and discuss it, and certainly not in person. The fact that we have the ability to worship in person is great, and there is some leeway for how people can come together, but I'm not going to run before we're walking. So we're not going to have any in-person book study. And I am not opposed to having a Zoom conversation. Right now, I just don't know when during the week that would be. Right now, Wednesdays are going to be tied up with confirmation classes and for vestry meeting. And so how we're going to discuss the book, I'm not sure yet. or if we need to discuss it. I just think it would be a good thing for us to read and to consider. And how we reflect on that as a group, we'll figure out in the days to come. If you have a suggestion for how we can do that, like when a good Zoom meeting would be for y'all, just reach out and let me know. I'm asking for your help on that question. Well, that's our meditation for today. I'm going to finish this beautiful breakfast, and I hope that you will enjoy some comfort, however it is that you find your own comfort. So enjoy comfort in these coming days, and consider what a rule of life might look for you during this Lenten season. Thanks. God bless.